Okay, we are going to go over one of my favorite maneuvers in stand-up surfing, and that is the slingshot cutback, or it's also known as a roundhouse cutback in traditional shortboarding. Whatever you want to call it, it is a fun maneuver to learn how to do, and there's a couple different ways to do it. So we're going to go through all of the steps, starting with how to set yourself up, because like a lot of things in surfing, we need to make sure that we are doing them with speed. So we'll have other videos to talk about generating speed and also talking about positioning on the wave. But if you're going for a slingshot cutback, you need to have speed when you go into this maneuver, and you need to choose where you're doing it on the wave. And generally, with this cutback, you want to be doing it when you're out and away from the curl, away from the most powerful part of the wave, and generally a fatter section is better for this maneuver. Or if you've generated a lot of speed, gotten out in front of the primary power section of the wave, and you use this as a maneuver to come back into the power source. So it's a speed burning maneuver to bring yourself back into the power of the wave. But this is not something you want to do if the wave is throwing or barreling or super steep. It's just not going to be conducive to that. That's where you want to maybe do an off the top, hitting the lip, or just a traditional, cutback, but on a steep section, but not a roundhouse cutback. So I'm going to play this forward here, and as we go to the bottom turn, you are going to notice one of the things that you want to do is draw out your bottom turn more. So what do I mean by that? You want to be coming at an angle like this out here and projecting out here, rather than if this was a steep section, I would be leaning a lot harder on my rail and to bring it tighter to come up into the curl here. But because the wave is fat and it's not steep, if I try to do a maneuver like that, I would probably just go out the back. It's just not the best section. So I'm going to draw out my bottom turn. So that's less pressure on the back foot, less rail engagement, and drawing a line that is projecting out towards the shoulder more. So as I do that, I'm leaning on my paddle, all right, and that's helping me, engage the rail. I'm compressing, my knees are low, all right, and all of these things we want to apply whenever we're surfing. Now, look at my eyes, all right? I'm eyeing up this section. The more advanced you get, the more you're able just to read the wave, and even, I'm surfing right now at high tide, so the waves are fat, and I know there's not going to be a lot of circumstances where I'm going to be hitting a throwing steep section, okay? Because a lot of people will ask, well, how do I know when to do this? That comes with experience, timing, and really just trying it, and try. I encourage you to try this maneuver the next time you go and surf, as long as conditions are somewhat conducive. So I'm coming out of my bottom turn, which is not very steep, right? So I'm not taking it super tight here. My eyes, look at my eyes. I'm looking out to this section, rather than if this was a steep section, I'd be looking up here, all right, because that's where I want to hit. So I'm leaning on my paddle, but then I'm releasing the rail a little bit here, because I'm setting myself up for the roundhouse or the slingshot, okay? So as I do that, I'm going to switch my paddle, and I'm switching my paddle for a couple reasons. One, that is going to allow me to rotate my hips, because right now my hips are pointed towards the wave, but my head and my eyes, and I want you to pay attention to that, are looking over my left shoulder, because you want to look where you want to go. And one is you want to see what you're about to do, but then also your hips and your lower body are going to follow wherever your head is looking. So I'm looking back over this left shoulder. At the same time, I'm switching my paddle, because if I keep my paddle on that side, it's going to be a lot harder to rotate my hips. But in my next turn, you're going to see the same maneuver without switching the paddle, and it's going to be interesting to be able to break that down. So now I got my paddle switched. I'm low. See how I'm compressing? The paddle is below my knees. All right. This is another key element of this turn. I have my eyes are looking over my left shoulder, and I'm coming out to the fat shoulder section of the wave. I got my paddle in the water. Now I'm engaging my rail. My front foot should be in the middle of the board like it is. My back foot is going to be on this left inside rail. Now I'm using the paddle kind of as a brace. All right, but see how it's not just completely anchored in the water. Look at my hips. They're starting to open to the left. Look at my eyes. They are pointed to the left as well, because that's where I want to be going. Okay, and now I'm rotating, staying low, leaning on that paddle. You don't want to rely on the paddle completely. I found that in the past I've cheated a little bit too much by leaning on that paddle too much. You want to be engaging that rail, okay, using that paddle, and now my hips are rotating and it's pulling me through as I push through the back foot. As I come through this turn, I should be pushing. I'd like to see a little bit more extension in that back foot, stylistically and for power. And now I'm slingshotting back into the white water, and since I've pretty much come through the apex of the turn, now because I want my hips to rotate back this way, because I want to be going back to the right, I'm going to be switching my paddle as I come off the white water here, and also that's going to be something for me to lean on, and then I'm going for my next maneuver. So let's go back and watch that kind of in real time here. Leaning on the paddle and back, okay? And so one more time in slow motion, projecting my bottom turn, coming out towards the fat section of the wave, switching low. That paddle is low below your knees, all right? Engaging that back foot, rail, lean. Watch my eyes. My hips follow my eyes. Leaning on that paddle. My front foot, my toes tend to come up because I'm really trying to get weight on that back heel right here. But a lot of the pressure should be on that back foot. And then as you come through the apex of the turn, extending that back foot a little bit, leaning on that paddle, and now I come through the turn and I'm coming off the white water, okay? Now I'm going to play this forward, and now we're going to see me set up for another slingshot cutback, but this time I'm not going to switch the paddle. So I'm coming out, all right? I want you to notice, again, it's a fat high tide wave, so this is not a steep section. I'm going to be attacking the lip. I'm going to come out to the shoulder, and look at my eyes. I know it's a little blurry, but I'm looking out of the corner of my eye because I know I'm wrapping back, because I'm reading this section right here as well, and I go, okay, that's super fat. I need to come back to the power source. I've generated speed to get out here. So now I'm going to set that up. I'm look at my eyes, looking over the shoulder. I'm engaging the rail, and now the only difference with this turn really is I'm not switching my paddle. And I like this kind of turn. I don't really have a roundhouse without switching the paddle is kind of what we're calling it now, but maybe we'll come up with something better. But I'm still looking over my shoulder. I'm engaging that rail, okay? Now, I get a little bit high with my upper body, but not too bad. I'm still low. My butt is down, all right? I got pressure on that back inside rail, and I come through leaning on that rail. Look how I'm compressing and staying low. That's key. And I don't have that paddle to lean on, so I really can't cheat. And that's why I enjoy doing this turn, which I actually only learned to really use this past season in Nosara at our, throughout the year, throughout the season. But when I switch my paddle, it's almost like there's nothing wrong with it, and I still enjoy that, but it's a little bit like cheating because I'm able to use that paddle to lean on, and that's why we like paddle surfing, is in using the paddle. But this, I find, is a way to really establish good fundamentals, and now I have that acceleration, a little bit of pressure through the back foot. Now when I come here, part of the reason I like having the paddle on this side now too is when I come off the whitewater, I can get a little bit more vertical with the board because my hips are going to be open this way and I have the paddle to lean on, like we talk about in backside surfing a lot of times too. And then I complete the turn. So let's watch that without a paddle one more time here. And I want to sort of play it back from me generating speed coming out of this turn. I'm going to come out to the shoulder, little speed, looking over my shoulder, back in to the wave. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. You can go back, rewatch both those turns. I'll play them all the way through now. So switch, low, lean on the paddle, come through, coming back out to the shoulder, low, up and off the section. And we'll watch one more time. So another wave, you'll see it's a little bit of a steeper wave on this next one, but I'm coming out and you can see the wave tapering off. So this is another instance where the slingshot cutback is a great tool to use to come back to the power source. And it's a really fun maneuver, staying low, leaning on that paddle, compressing, little bit of back foot extension there, and then come off the white water, switching that paddle as my hips rotate. Okay, so I encourage you guys, really try this, both variations of this maneuver. It's an extremely fun one. Probably my favorite thing to do is carrying a ton of speed out to the shoulder and then just leaning on that paddle, coming back, the sensation of the, I don't call G forces. I don't know if we're pulling any G's, maybe percentage of a G, but when you get that compression is really fun to feel that acceleration and come back. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Check out bluezonesup.com for more, for our podcast, for information on our camps in Nosara, Costa Rica, SUP surf, all-inclusive stand-up paddle surf camps. It's amazing down here. Both of these waves are pretty typical, if not actually a little bit below average days. Yeah, give us a visit and hope you enjoy.